Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap up. I read a total of 6 books and 1 play. So I'm going to start with my least favorite and move up to my favorite book. I like that. So my least favorite was I read the novel adaptation of the new Mary Poppins that just came out, Mary Poppins Returns. Kathy McCullough, who adapted it, she did a really great job of not putting any songs in here, and there was a lot of singing in the movie, and so I was really surprised that she was able to do that very well. Like, she took them out, and some of those songs had a lot of important like plot points in them, so I was very impressed that she was able to do that. But it was my least favorite read. It was almost exactly like the movie, which there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I was trying to say that I was impressed Kathy McCullough did such a great job sticking to the movie, and it's a adaptation, so that's exactly what she was supposed to do. It was nothing to McCullough, it was the story itself that I didn't find so fascinating. So she did a great job adapting it. I guess I don't really like her book adaptations of film all that much, so I gave this an 8 out of 10 though, because like I said, she did a really great job of not putting any songs in here when they're so prevalent in the movie, so I was very impressed with that. The second one I have is Mary Queen of Scots. It's another film adaptation. Book adaptation of a film. I've never actually seen the film of this one. I saw the new Mary Queen of Scots that just came out, which I absolutely loved. I love Mary Queen of Scots. She's my favorite queen. Her and Queen Elizabeth's relationship and their reign and everything, I just find it so fascinating. So anything Mary Queen of Scots I will absolutely eat up, and I will read anything about her. But ultimately I gave this one an 8 out of 10. It was a little slow at times, and I didn't often like how Mary was portrayed in this book, and this book follows right after Francis's death. So she was married to Francis in France actually, and she was queen to Francis, and after he died she had to return to Scotland, so this picks up right after there, and it tells about her life after France and how her and Elizabeth, their relationship, that's really what it talks about, is her and Elizabeth's relationship. The next book I have, I was very disappointed with this one. I was super excited to read it. It had been on my list for almost a year now to read, and it's Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. It's more of a classical literature book, but we were supposed to read this in my, I guess it's not classical, because we were supposed to read this in my modern literature class, and so I bought it and I had the copy, and we just never got around to reading it in class. And then I had some friends who were telling me that it was a really good book and I really had to read it, so I was super excited to read it, and I read it. And let me first tell you what it's about. It's about a black woman, and it starts off, I liked the structure of it. It starts off with her telling a story, and so she's telling the story of her life to a friend, and so we get to hear her entire life from when she was, I think, a child actually, to when she gets married, and then everything that happens after that to where she ends up in this community. I really liked the story. I thought the story was very interesting. It was just very slow at times, which I was disappointed about. I thought it would be much more of a page turner, but ultimately it was a great book. I gave it an 8 out of 10, but I would recommend reading it. I think it's a great book to read. It definitely is a feminist book, or it has feminist undertones to it. The main character definitely learns a lot about males and about life and about what it means to be a female and what it means to be a black female, so it is an important book. I would recommend reading it, but you don't need to rush to read it. So the next book I have is The Perfect Horse by Elizabeth Lutz. This book follows the horses of World War II and their struggle, and it's mostly oh yeah, I guess she talks about the American horses too, but it's horses in Austria, Poland, and a little bit in America. She doesn't really get too deep into those horses because I guess they weren't affected as much by the war. But this was really interesting, and you don't have to ride horses or be an equestrian to read it. It really, I think, is an important read because it helps to remind us that there were so many people and things affected by World War II, and it wasn't just people. There were animals affected, the economy was affected, the environment was affected, And so I think it's a really important reminder, and so I think this is a very important book. And it was interesting. It was just slow at some points, and Elizabeth did a really great job of illustrating the horses. And I actually watched a movie based on the Lipizzaner horses, which are the main breed of horses talked about in this book. And the movie was so boring. It was made by Walt Disney in 19 something, and the book is way better. Lex did an amazing job, but ultimately I had to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because it was just a little slow sometimes. And there are so many names in it of like generals and colonels and people in the army, and they get all mixed up, and so it's definitely, I would reread it though. It's definitely something I would read because I think it's an important book. 8.5 out of 10. These next two, actually, they are both by Oscar Wilde. The first one I have, I'll talk about the play first, is The Importance of Being Earnest. I gave this a 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed this play. It's super short. It took me, I think, 45 minutes to an hour to read. It's a very short read. It's funny, and it's about two male guys, that's redundant. It's about two male characters who they each have a made-up person in their lives that they go and see, like whenever they want to get away from their family or whenever they want to get away from their situation. They say that this person in their lives is sick, and the main character, okay, it's kind of hard to explain, and I don't want to give too much away, but the main character goes to London, I believe, and he says that his name is Ernest, and his name isn't Ernest, but he tells the people at home that his name, or that his brother's name is Ernest, and which I was a little confused about how his niece, who's his ward, doesn't know that he has another brother. I think it's his sister's daughter. I'm not sure, but I feel like that would have came up. So that I was a little confused about, but it's definitely worth the read, and it does raise important questions about identity and about who you are, and I would recommend reading it. I'm sure you can find it online because this was published in 1895, so it should be in the whatever that thing is called where all the classical literature is for free, because it's so old. So it's called the public domain, and it has to do with when copyrights expire. So most books that were written before 1977 are in the public domain, and so they don't have a copyright, so you can find them for free online. I would recommend finding this online and reading it. It's worth it. The second one I have by Oscar Wilde is The Picture of Dorian Gray. I did not think I was going to like it. I hadn't heard much about it, but I read the back of the book, and I didn't think I'd find it interesting. I was like, I don't really care about a young guy, about his life in London. He's rich. He seems like he has everything, and then the best part about it is that he keeps his youth, and so I promise this is the last time I butt in, but the main reason why I didn't want to read this was because a lot of male-authored classical literature portray females as simple and as less than, but I do believe after reading it that Wilde had some feminist undertones in it, and I would actually really like to study this and find out, but that was my main reason. Okay, back to regular programming. I didn't know what to think, but I did not think I would like it as much as I did, but I really like Wilde, and after reading the play and the novel, I'm definitely going to pick up more of his works, because I was so impressed. He wrote The Picture of Dorian Gray in 1891, so it is a bit older, but I gave it a 9 out of 10, ultimately, because it was slow at times, but it was definitely, you could get through it. It's classical literature. You have to just kind of bear down and tunnel through it, but there were some parts that were funny, and I really enjoyed this. It follows Dorian Gray through his life, and it goes through quite a lot of years. I think it's 30 something years is the time span of the book, and there's a little bit of magic in it, in my opinion. If you read it, you'll know what I mean. We don't really know if it's magic or if Dorian is just kind of seeing things. I'd like to think that it's magic, but you can make your own opinion on that. So I gave this a 9 out of 10. I think it's worth picking up, and I think it's a great addition to a bookshelf. My last one is by Margaret Atwood. As you guys know, if you watched my top 5 books I read in undergrad video, you'll know I love Atwood. She's a great author. I love her work. Her work is so easy to get through. It's never boring. It's funny. It's a lot of times ironic. And she gives her characters such a voice that I have yet to come across. I need to find a better way to explain her characters. It's like The Handmaid's Tale. Definitely more serious work, but even Offred, I can't remember her real name, Offred in The Handmaid's Tale, she even has like these little quippy comebacks that really make her books. And so I read the Penelopiad, which it's an adaptation and rewriting of Penelope in the Greek mythology. I think it's Greek mythology. So, Penelope, Odysseus' wife, Penelope. So I gave this a 10 out of 10. It was super quick to get through. I read this in a few hours. It's short on the inside, but I definitely recommend reading this. This was it was so great. I loved it. If you know the story of Penelope and Odysseus leaves to go help fight the Battle of Troy to get Penelope's cousin Helen back. She ran away with Paris. Yeah, she ran away with Paris, and so Odysseus and Penelope are married, and Odysseus leaves Penelope to go fight with Menelaus to get Helen back, and Penelope's stuck at home for, it's like 20 years she's stuck at home, and she has all these suitors come and they want to marry her. And so after a while she's like, okay, fine, like I'll marry one of you after I finish making this shroud. And every day she would work on the shroud, and then at night she would uncoil the shroud, until eventually it's thought that maybe one of her maids told one of these suitors that what she was doing, and so they said that she needed to pick somebody right away. And then so she comes up with the idea of they need to string this bow that only Odysseus could string, and then whoever could string it and shoot it through 12 axes. I think 12 is an important number. 12 axes, then they would get to marry her. And it turns out like Odysseus is already there, and I'm totally comfortable telling you guys that because that's just the story of Odysseus and Penelope, and the base story itself is the same. Atwood reclaims Penelope because there was a lot of rumors that she was like sleeping with all of his suitors and other stuff, and there are 12 maids in it who were her favorite maids, and they all got killed at the end by Odysseus. And so Atwood reclaims their story, and if you like adaptations of works, which I really like, which I'm sure if you've watched my other video you already know, but I really like adaptations of works, and Atwood does such a great job of reclaiming female narratives. So definitely, yep, 10 out of 10 this one, the Penelopiad, Margaret Atwood. I talk way too much and my thoughts are scattered. I need to be more organized. I promise the next video that I do, like a book review, will be more organized. That's that for this video. I'm also going to film a mini book haul, so watch out for that.